Well, I'll start by saying that the Daily Word is a pint-sized magazine. I didn't make that phrase up, pint-sized. Although this looks more like a quart, doesn't it? That's because I have bad eyes. We have a pint-sized version back there. But the Daily Word is a pint-sized magazine published by Unity since 1924. That makes it 98 years in publication. 98 years. Although, Marguerite, welcome. You've been around a few years longer than that, haven't you? Marguerite has a birthday coming up in November, and is it 102? Is that right? 102 years old. So if you haven't met Marguerite, yeah, that's coming up in November. And if you check out our weekly newsletter called In Unity, you'll see that we have our October birthdays listed as well coming up. So take a look at that. All right, back to pint-sized. Yeah, they used to call me that, right? Well, some people probably still do, but we're not going to say that. So it offers inspiration and practical teachings through daily affirmation messages, prayer articles, and spiritual poetry to help people of all faiths live healthy and prosperous and meaningful lives. And you've heard me say this before, but sometimes I choose today's daily word, and sometimes I choose one from long ago. Today's really resonated with me. Of course, I have to look at these, a week in advance and say, well, which one do I want to use on that day? And how do you know if it's going to resonate with you 7 days in advance, right? So, well, it just so happens that today's daily word is ease. And the phrase that the affirmation behind it is, beholding God in every circumstance helps me know ease. All right, I'll read for you. It's easy for me to find God in the glory of a sunrise and in the laughter of children, and to feel God's love as I get together with friends or family. Wherever there is wonder, joy, or fellowship, God is surely present. I remember that God is just as surely present when my responsibilities feel overwhelming, or when conflict arises in a relationship, or when it feels as though there isn't enough of what I need. If I begin to feel tense, fearful, or frustrated, I remember that wisdom, love, understanding, and strength, all of the divine qualities that live within me, are ready to help me handle any challenge. Assured by my awareness of God's presence, I move with ease and grace through whatever this day brings. And again, the affirmation supporting that is, you say with me, please, beholding God in every circumstance helps me know ease. Once again, take a look at some important words. Every, right? Every circumstance, the good and the bad, just like we sing in the opening song of Good Morning. It's easy to wake up and feel when everything's like sunny out. Oh, what a great day. But sometimes when it's cloudy, we have to realize that God is there too in every circumstance. Once again, please, beholding God in every circumstance helps me know ease. Good. So it's really interesting to me how that I decided that would be yes, I would use that daily word, and then as the week progressed, how it fit more and more into my week. So there was a day today. So Robin Eves is our administration assistant, our admin assistant. Some of you know her, some of you don't. She's here Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and Robin and I clicked from day one. Like we were like peas in the pod. And we only see each other 2 days a week, Tuesday and Wednesday. That's it. I'm here Monday through Thursday, Sunday through Thursday, and she's here Tuesday and Wednesday, and we get all the business stuff done and the work done. And last week we ran into each other. I was taking a little drive through your neck of the woods, through Joyce, and I stopped into that little general store. Do you know the general store in Joyce? How adorable is that? And it reminded me a lot of the town that I grew up in. We had a little place called the Sugar Bowl that was it was mostly candy, but we also had a post office with those little tiny post office things where I still remember it was BC, 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 Like I remember how to get in the mailbox at Post Office Box 221, Blacklick, Pennsylvania. Right. So, but I love that little place. And so back to Robin, I'm in there with a friend of mine, and all of a sudden this person taps me on the shoulder, and it was Robin, because she lives out that way too. And we just had this out of work joyful experience. Like there was just a completely different experience when we weren't like trying to get the jobs of the week done, right? So this week, Robin says to me on Wednesday, she says, "Are you feeling stressed?" Now, this is a person who sees me twice a week, right, for the last 2 months that I've been here. And she recognized right off the top, she says, "Are you feeling stressed?" It wasn't because I had snapped at her or anything. She said, it was kind of early in our morning, actually. And I said, "No, I don't feel stressed. I don't really feel anything." She said, "Oh, I was just wondering yesterday." And, so what do I do in this moment? I could continue down the road of, no, I'm not stressed. I feel fine, but there's someone in my face right here telling me, no, not telling me, but they are, right? They're asking me, "Do you feel stressed?" What they're doing is they're letting me know, she's letting me know that she sees a change in me. There's something different. And her first thing is, "Oh," and then we talked about it. And I said, "Well, I guess I don't feel stressed, but maybe I feel a little bit overwhelmed about this or that, and just taking a moment to stop and say, what is she reflecting back at me? She's my mirror right there, right? I can think that I'm presenting a certain way, but here's this person in front of me saying, here's how you're showing up right now. And so it's important for me to stop and say, well, whether or not I feel this or I think I'm expressing this or not, here is a mirror showing me what they are feeling. So the important lesson for me in that, one of the important lessons for me in that, was to really stop where I thought I was. And did you ever see the railroad crossing signs? I took a picture of it, but I didn't make it onto the screen this week. But it's stop, look, and listen. Do you remember those? It's the white thing and railroad crossing and stop, look, and listen. That is really good advice in life, isn't it? I mean, stop. Look at the situation and listen to how you're reflecting in people, how they're reflecting you back at you. So I had a stop, look, and listen moment with Robin this week, and she helped me to do that. And I realized that really what I wasn't necessarily feeling stressed, maybe a little overwhelmed at this. Some things come at you, and you've got 7 things, and you only have room in your brain for 6.5 of them. But I had put myself into a very common version of myself that's like concentration mode. I have a goal in mind because there's a deadline or there's this, and I go like laser focus, and everything, all the walls start to close in to sort of protect me from distractions, and I get very laser focused on the thing at hand. And then what I realize, and if someone's good enough like Robin to let you know gently, that my joy is not present then. I wasn't showing up as joyful and happy. Now, I don't go around, yes, I used to work for Disney for a long time and still do. Yeah, right. But I'm not like performatively happy. Like I don't, and what I mean by that is I don't put on happiness or joy to make other people happy. It is a quality of mine that I really enjoy life, and I live with an energy that I hope exudes. And there's a part of my life, also a version of me, that is completely hidden because I blocked it out in order to get to this. So that's what was showing up as was my concentration mode. And getting to the place where I can still get those things done and concentrate, but still live in joy is still a challenge for me. I also realized that I was not spending enough time in my daily practice. Now, some of you may have a daily practice of some sort, and some may not. That's up to you. And how I think let's turn the sound off on that. We all have different daily practices. Just going to lower the sound there. My daily practice, some of you might be, your daily practice might be prayer, might be reading scripture, might be reading a book or something. My daily practice that works so well for me is sitting in a corner, either with a really good inspirational book and spending time in the silence. And I capital capitalized TS, the silence. And that for me often leads me into meditation or prayer, but that is something that really sets up my day and sets up how I get through the rest of my day from a place of compassion. And I realized that over the last little while, I haven't been setting aside that time in the morning. And boy, does that show up real quick. You find out real quick when you haven't been utilizing your own tools, whatever they are. So that was also a stop, look, and listen moment. There is, going back in time, there's an author and a spiritual leader from a while back named Emmett Fox. Some of you would know, some of you who are long in New Thought, in Unity or in New Thought or in CSL would know Emmett Fox. And for those of you who aren't familiar with him, he was born in 1886 and he passed in 1951. And Emmett Fox was born in Ireland. And he, in his early teens, came into the New Thought movement, which had just sort of been starting out about the time he was born. New Thought was kind of came to us in the late 1800s. And he did a talk or two in London a little while, but then in 1931, he moved to New York City and took over the Divine Science Church there, which is still in existence as a New Thought church, a New Thought movement. And Emmett Fox, he went on, there was a giant theater in New York City called the Hippodrome, just enormous. And he gave sermons there and then at Radio City Music Hall. And his congregation would be 5,000 people, 5,500 people. That's how, so he's a big name in New Thought. And Emmett Fox, amongst other writings, and some of the writings that AA groups use, but another one is called The Golden Key. So again, some of you from Unity or you might know about The Golden Key, and it is, and Emmett wrote this in 1931, right when he came to the United States, but he also updated it in 1944 for Unity. And it's a little tiny five-page booklet. And he says, I've condensed this message into 5 pages. And had it been possible, I would have condensed it to 5 lines. That the message is so simple. It's not some big giant treatise, some tome that we have to read. The message is very simple. And he goes on, he said, it's not intended to be an instructional treatise, but a practical guide for getting out of trouble. So, I need this guide every once in a while. I don't know about anyone out there, but trouble pops in now and then, and we could define what trouble is, right? It could be, there's so many things. I don't have to define. Charles said, stop talking about me. I'm in the room. Study and research are well in their own time and place, but no amount of either of those will get you out of a difficulty. Nothing but practical work in your own consciousness will do that, right? No book is going to give it to you. It's the work that we do inside. It's the stop, look, and listen. It's the humility, it's the humbleness that we can have that says, I'm not doing as good of a job as I could. I'm not living in the highest version of myself. And I live in that space, in that I'm not in the highest version of myself. And I don't say that as a critique. I don't say that as, to get someone to respond differently or to think that I'm not doing my work. I'm always, hopefully, doing my work. And I'm always and never living the highest version of myself. There's always another level up, right? It's like a video game, right? You just always level up. So having the humility to realize that there is always a leveling up, that we can always get to a higher version of ourselves is important. And one of the things that keeps me from getting to that place, and I see head nods all over the room right now. So one of the things is thoughts of something that isn't going well, thoughts of anger, thoughts of disappointment. These are all things that keep me from living in the highest version of myself. Emmett Fox writes in The Golden Key, he says to read this several times, but we could read 5 pages and I'm not going to. I'm going to get to the one sentence. All you have to do is this. Stop thinking about the difficulty, whatever it is, and think about God instead. Stop thinking about the difficulty, whatever it is, and think about God instead. Well, this sounds like too good to be true, right? Like, oh, that's easy. Just stop what you're thinking. You know what? It's not, right? I lie in bed at night sometimes, and I'm like, these tapes are playing, or we don't say tapes anymore. What do we say? MP3. This MP3 in my brain is playing over again. This 45 record, right? 78 record. Playing over in my brain over and over again. And I can say to myself, stop thinking about this. Just stop. And it doesn't happen. Like it goes on until, eventually you fall asleep. The thing that this goes on to say is think about God instead. Now, if you've been coming to this church in the last 2 months, you probably know that I have a different version of God that works for me so much. You've heard me talk about this. So up here, God is love, right? And for me, God is, growing up, was an old man with a white beard who doled out, blessings to me if I asked nicely enough, and if I didn't sin or whatever that was, For me now, God is not a human form, but God is, I use the acronym GOD: goodness, order, and divinity. That's what works for me. I'm not here to tell you that that's the way you should think of God, because if old man God works for you and that is helping you to live the highest version of yourself, I'm not taking that away from you in any way. If goddess works for you, great spirit, any of these things that work for you, that's the wonderful thing about unity, is we embrace all of that, whatever works for you in your personal journey. And I'm just sharing with you, for me, goodness, order, and divinity is how that works for me. And that way, when I see the word, I don't get distracted about, oh, that's not that to me. I immediately substitute 1, 2, or 3 of those words. So when he writes, stop thinking about the difficulty, whatever it is, and think about God instead. Think about goodness instead. Think about divine order instead. That things are happening in an order that I have no control over. And I want to come back to your prayer about that, Pat, because you have a wonderful piece in your prayer about control. And think about divinity instead. That there is something just bigger, whatever that is. It's something that's divine and sacred in me and out there. I can take any of those 3 words or any combination of those and put them in place of God. And here's the thing for me was, and I came up with a little phrase, and the phrase came to me a little bit too late in the week, and I thought, I should have written a song about that. So watch for a new song called Erase and Replace. Erase and replace. So what the message is here from Emmett, the golden key is to erase the negative thought, to stop it in its tracks, right? But that's hard until and unless you replace it with something else. I can tell myself in the refrigerator to not eat that leftover pizza, but unless I replace it with something, I'm going to be hungry still. Right? You don't just take something out and leave a void in its place. We need to replace it. So replace it with God. So if someone upsets me in some way during the week, or how about, here's an example. How about Bill? He didn't upset me. The internet, Bill and I have been dealing with the internet signal here, and how that can get me like, like the signal's not strong enough, and we can't do this, and we can't figure out why this is doing that, and the router and the modem, and and you're on the phone. Or I was on the phone with Delta this week for 2.5 hours trying to get boy, that can get you into a tizzy, as my grandmother would say.
Dither.
Yeah. So I can say to myself all I want. Just stop thinking that. Stop. We hear that a lot, right? In positive thought, we hear like, well, just change, just don't think about the negative things. But unless I put God in its place, it's unlikely that I'm going to be able to get rid of that for very long. Unless I'm able to put just goodness alone, just the thought that the world functions on goodness, even though it appears differently sometimes. The world functions in goodness. That's how the planet keeps evolving. That's how the universe keeps evolving. And there's an order to all of this, right? There's seasons, like, look, we're seeing the order right in front of our faces when the leaves are turning to yellow, and we're seeing the order of things, and the divinity, the sacredness of walking into a forest and just observing how small and infinitesimal you are, like just tiny. Going to those places to replace our negative thoughts, that is the golden key. So there we go, Emmett Fox, golden key. And Emmett goes on to say two things. First of all, and I'm not going to read the whole pamphlet to you, but it's not that you're supposed to think about the solution to your problem. That's not yours to figure out. Right? It is that you are just to hold God, the source, the goodness, the order, in its place. Don't worry about the solution. That's going to keep you in the problem. So just think about God in its place. The other thing, and I wrote down some other words that help for me, is to think about God, to think about goodness, order, and divinity, to think about love instead. He says, to think about, and the other thing is to not necessarily, he says this very specifically actually, not to hold an image of God in your mind, but rather your understanding of the thoughts and qualities of God. So to hold an image of God in your mind, again, might be a little bit distracting or even limiting, but you have your own idea of what your thoughts are about God and what God is. So for me, thoughts of love, compassion, peace, life, spirit, energy, source. That's a big one for me. Source of everything for billions of years before humans even showed up. Source was there, right? And for long, when humans are extinct, source will still be there, right? And energy and healing, that was the other one. Stop the thinking and stop the emotional response. That's the other one, right? Stop the emotional. That's the thing that gets me. It's like, it might be one thing that I'm thinking about the internet, or I'm thinking about why Delta is taking so long to answer my call. Of course, they're dealing with a hurricane in Florida, so I get that. But still 2.5 hours of my time. But the emotional response is the thing that was so triggered in me, right? That's the thing that I need to say. Step this aside and replace it with compassion. Replace it with healing. Replace it with source. Replace it with love. Order. Replace it with order. It's the divine order of things that I am 2.5 hours back on the call queue because someone else has to change their flight because they were flying through Orlando or something. That is the divine order of things. Why would I resist that? Well, you do what you do, right? You have your emotions. But if I set that aside, and go to replacing it with compassion for this person that's on the other line that's having to sit there for overtime and deal with all, or the people who are missing their phone calls. There are so many ways that we can get out of that negative space when we choose to be generous, when we choose to be humble, that we're not living the highest version of ourselves, are we? Other options that come up, and I'm just going to give you a few examples because they might apply to you. Feeling disappointed that you didn't get the job that you want. Stop thinking about that disappointment of the job and replace it with God, or thoughts of how something else can happen. Thoughts of God's compassion, God's love, God's order, the divine order of things. Worried about illness? Stop, erase, replace. Do you have a body condition, an ailment, if you will, something that's like, do you have a relationship issue, whether that's a friendship or a loved one, a family member, or is there someone that just is pushing your buttons? Stop, look, and listen. Stop, erase, replace. How can you replace that feeling with one of the qualities that you know God is? There's a song that I'm not going to do the whole thing for you because it's not really mine to do, but I think I'll leave that to Miss Diana Ross. But she said, "Stop in the name of love before you break my heart. Stop in the name of love before you break my heart. Thinking, oh, haven't I been good to you? Thinking, oh," right? Stop in the name of love. All right, we're not going to read that verse yet, okay? Stick with me here for a minute. Stop in the name of love. So this song came to me because it's easy and it's fun. I could do the whole choreography for you, but we're on YouTube video and it's going to be memorialized forever. So you want it, don't you? You're like, stop in the name of love. Look at the hips. Before you break my heart. All right? I just didn't put on my white dress. All right, so... but there you go. Stop in the name of love. So here's the thing. God to me is love, right? God to many of us represents love. Love is a quality of God, but God is love. Stop in the name of love. And I envisioned as I read this, read the lyrics of this song, which by the way, I had never really read the lyrics to this song or most pop songs. Really, you get that hook and the choreography and you're like, where's my white dress? Right? But yeah. So stop in the name of love. So I pictured, as I read the lyrics, and we're going to read them together, not out loud, but we're going to read them so we can have an idea. But what if God were singing this song? What if it's not Diana Ross and some jilted wife, and we're going to read a little bit about what she was really singing, but what if God said, hey, stop in the name of love. Actually, what that comes from is stop in the name of the law. Did you ever watch a Western? Stop in the name of the law, right? Well, stop in the name of love became a play on that. So let's go back to lyric number 1, if we could. So we have stop in the name of love before you break my heart. Think it over. Haven't I been good to you? God says to us. All right. And again, I'm going to go for just a second that God is a person. All right. And that, even though that doesn't really, but let's just for a second that God is a person that speaks and says, in the name of love, would you stop? Would you stop going into concentration mode? Would you stop getting so angry and ticked off at this? Would you just stop in the name of love? All right, so Diana Ross in The Supremes, she says, I'm aware of where you go each time you leave my door. I watch you walk down the street knowing your other love you'll meet. Thinking, oh, over, haven't I been good to you? Thinking, oh, over, haven't I been good to you? Just imagine God is saying, or Spirit is like, you know what? I see everything. I know where you're going. I know you're not with me right now. I know you're walking down the street to go do something that's not as healthy for you or your evolution. And this is not a morality thing. I'm not saying, oh, you shouldn't go to a bar or you shouldn't go to the casino. I'm saying perhaps you're walking down the proverbial street of getting inappropriately angry with someone or a situation. That's where we're going with this. Let's go to we're going to skip verse 2 and we're going to go to verse 3, please. Yeah, we go. Again, imagine Goddess saying to you, I've tried so hard to be patient, hoping you'll stop this infatuation with whatever it is you're spending your time with. But each time you're together, I'm so afraid I'll be losing you forever. So next time you get a chance to listen to your oldies station, we can take this down, by the way. Thank you. It's a great song to listen to under that guise. It's just one of those things that could be someday in your week, 3 weeks from now, you're going to be turning on the oldies station, or what I call current music. And you'll be hearing Diana Ross singing Stop in the Name of Love. And you'll think, is there anything that I need to stop, look, and listen about? All right. So that's that on Diana Ross. Now I want to move into one of my favorite books, one of my favorite forms of inspiration is an ancient Chinese philosopher named Wu Xin. And the first book that I read, and it's basically, he's an ancient Chinese philosopher who arguably, it's not actually proven that this person actually existed, and that's a whole other topic. But these wisdom pieces, these gems, come from about 300 to 600 BC. They come from around the Confucius era, all right? And there's a book of them called Aphorisms for Thirsty Fish. That's the first one I read. And then I loved it so much. My brother told me about it, and so I ordered it. And I loved it so much that I bought the whole 5 volumes. So Aphorisms for Thirsty Fish is the first of those, and then it's 5 more. So Aphorisms for Thirsty Fish, that's a good thing to write down. APHOR something ISM. Aphorism for Thirsty Fish. And the author is Wu Xin. That's spelled HS, not SH, but HSIN. And it's edited by a guy named Roy Melvin. All right, so Aphorisms for Thirsty Fish is one of these books that you open up to, and on left-hand page there will be 4 or 5 little snippets, and on the right-hand page there'll be 4 or 5 snippets, and there are no page numbers, so you can never go, hey, did you see page 43? And no, you can't. You just there are a lot of dog ears on my book. You know, it's like, how do I ever find this one again? And part of it is you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to find it again because you'll be led to it. People said that, I remember as a kid, people would say that about the Bible. You ever have a problem, just open up to any scripture. That didn't really work for me because I couldn't read Old English, King James Version. I was like, I don't know what this means. So Aphorisms for Thirsty Fish, sometimes I'll have to turn 3 or 4 pages to find one that actually resonates with me. But so there is one of his sayings that relates to today's topic. So good for me, so good. In order for insight to blossom, it is not what one does that matters. What matters is what one stops doing. Big. We can add and add to our lives. We can add prayer, we can add books, we can add worship services, celebration services. We can add. But what really gets us to that deep place of insight and knowing is, what do we take away? What do we need to get rid of in our lives? It's huge to me. What do we need to stop in the name of love and erase and replace? So I leave that with you. What is it that you could let go of? What is it that I could let go of? I'm gonna tell you a few of mine. All right, because I'm going to tell you a few of mine because sometimes they resonate with you. If they don't, you can just smile and nod and say, boy, he sure is imperfect, and I take it. All right, but things that I can let go of: judging, worrying. These are things I can stop doing. Projecting into the future. Regretting the past. Living in fear. Procrastinating, substituting, ignoring. These are big ones for me, and there's probably a lot more in there. And if they resonate for you, great for you, and you can spend a little time today, this afternoon, jotting down some things. What could I stop doing? What can I let go of, rather than adding one more layer? And adding things is great. I love my books. I bought another one at the great, wonderful bookstore in Port Townsend. Wait, we're in Port Angeles. So there's a wonderful bookstore in Port Townsend called Rising Phoenix. Amazing. And I can't go in there and not buy a book, even though my budget says don't buy that book. And but yeah, I love adding these things to my journey. But more important is, what am I taking out of my journey? What am I taking out? All right. That is the message. That's our stopping in the name of love for today. And if you will just join with me in some alignment and some breaths at your own pace, finding the silence within, some alignment with spirit. And we know and acknowledge that there is one power and one presence, and that power has been in existence for time infinite, and it will be in existence for time infinite. We recognize that we are part of that existence, part of that power and that presence. Like a flame is to fire, like a wave is to ocean. One is part of the other, and the other is part of one. And as this truth resonates in us, we realize and know and live that we are co-creators of our experience of life, of our experience of order. It is our experience of the order that we see as our daily life. And we can create and control and change our experience of it. We cannot control the order of things, and our prayers are not to change the order. Our prayers are to align with the order so that we may change our experience of it. And so we align with order now, with divine order, acknowledging that we can indeed change our experience of it. We acknowledge that we know of experiences and of situations in this world that are challenging for ourselves and challenging for others. That part of divine order has hurricanes in Florida, or stampedes in India, or wars in other countries. That is part of the order. And we align ourselves with the divinity that we can change our reaction to these things. We can find the peace within. We can alter our consciousness. And we know that as we alter our own individual consciousness, our own individual experience of how these things play out, that we help to shape that for others. We give thanks for the young and youthful energies and humans among us who show us promise and potential for our beautiful future. And we give thanks, we are so grateful for the wisdom of the elders who have passed and are passing here in our presence, guiding us, who've charted the paths for us. So grateful. And we hold in our hearts moments of gratitude, private to our souls, completely known to the Great Spirit. And we know as we are connected to the one power and one presence, that all, even as we think it, imagine it, believe it, that all is already so. It's already in place. And we say, so it is. So it is. And so it is.